there in 1955. Bought my first house there on Range Lane. Paid $23,000 for it, sold it for $36,000, came to Columbia, 1982. Built 2 houses down here. The issues in Cahokia are vast, and a lot of it had to do with a lot of homes being built in the 50s. They got flooded out, got turned into rental units. Even single-family residences there are mostly rentals. Not just the apartment buildings, but half the town are rental units. And that was now, and they were then. In the 50s, a lot of homes that got...
No, before the flood and all that, them apartment buildings went under HUD.
Once again, there's a big, long history in Cahokia, and I appreciate it. I appreciate the fears. This is not the kind of community that's going to be, I think from a price standpoint, I think if, even on the rentals, and David, we have, I know you don't have a price point yet, but Columbia Lakes, the apartments that are there today, that have been there since the mid-80s, they're not full HUD people. You know, those have been there in the middle of our community all this time. I live on Deer Creek Court. I go out every morning right by those apartments. We have policemen living there. We have school teachers. You have to have some entry-level housing in your community to help. Those are the people who will be buying your houses when you want to sell and move into the next house. But these will also be, as we mentioned in the very beginning, we're going to shoot to have this thing that's mostly condos. Now, condos don't equate to rent. That is equity. That is ownership. So we're trying to bow in your direction as much as we can. We can't promise you that they won't mostly be rentals in the beginning, but I can promise you that the kind of rents that they're going to pay won't be covered by HUD. They won't be Section 8. You're going to have some pretty substantial income to be afford to even rent one. Drive over and look at the apartments on off Ford, the condos that he talked about, and see how that's held up for 4 years. And I think you're going to see the kind of community that we're hoping for.
I noticed in the ones you were talking about earlier, that's similar to what you would like to mention. I noticed that the second story, as you get around, it looks like some kind of brick ordinance, was all roof line incorporated to it. Do you propose to do that in this section as well?
The mansard roof?
Sure. I do propose, for design purposes, to use some mansard roofs. I will ask my builders to do that because I like them. I think if you build nothing but straight masonry, you end up with something that looks like public housing. It's not good. And so I try to put my builders put as much design element in as possible. But there will be no vinyl siding, no hardy planks, all the siding. And there's a lot of siding on the houses in Columbia Lakes now. There will be none. It'll be a higher level product. And to whatever's rented, the rent will certainly be higher than the Columbia Lakes apartments right now. Yes, ma'am.
Can it be written in there, in the clause, that after this deal is shut, that it can never be open to go into HUD housing? Or Section 8?
That
the contract...
It is my understanding that if something's going to be HUD or Section 8, it has to be that from the beginning, that it doesn't turn into that afterward. And I can assure you, life's too short. I'm not doing any government housing. I have 0 government housing at Anderson Creek Club, Chateau de Ville. Well, I was the biggest condominium builder in St. Louis. In fact, I was probably the biggest residential builder, period, in St. Louis. And I don't do government housing.
I have another question.
Yes.
And I guess this is for the board, the alderman. Oh, what about the traffic we're bringing around those little roads? I mean, it can be a racetrack up there, and it's hard to get out of Columbia Lakes because the curve is there. And
actually, that's an interesting question. My vision of the original plan of the Columbia Lakes was a boulevard that ran all the way through the project. When we got about a third of the way through the project, the Columbia City Council and I had a disagreement. They said, we don't want a boulevard going all the way through. We're afraid it'll become a racetrack. And I said, I think good planning calls for a boulevard all the way through with neighborhoods coming off of it. But, as usual, the political structure won, And it isn't a racetrack now, it isn't a boulevard. It stops and then it goes through various streets.
It is a racetrack.
It is a
It is a racetrack.
Very
Then we
narrow.
need to hire a cop to sit there all the time and get the people who's running stop signs and racing
It's the
through.
racetrack.
Are you referring to from the entrance?
From Columbia Lakes to Robert, to Micah's Way, down that way.
Well, if somebody can speed on some of those winding streets in there, I mean, there's a lot of times there's cars parked and everything else. But I know what you're talking about in terms of in front of the apartments, and I know.
Right, I know, that's wide enough there, but the other streets aren't wide enough, and people drive through fast all the time, and you're gonna put 300 more housing things
Well-
in there, and you can't tell me they're gonna go down,
About 220.
okay, so they're not, so if they have 1 or 2 cars, you're talking almost 400 cars on 2 roads, 2
Yeah.
entrances.
Well, today, you know, if you'll think about it, until that road was built, we've all been going in and out of one entrance.
I know,
And there's about, how many of us out there? 300 and something home builders or
but
homeowners
we're
today?
adding more to it.
But we've been on one road. And it was a requirement for this to be developed, that that other road had to be built.
Correct.
And there was also, I'm sure, traffic studies done when that road was put in, although I wasn't privy to them, anticipating the development of the rest of the ground. And the roads have to be looked at by IDOT to make sure that it'll work. Now, you don't have too much traffic on Old Route 3. I know there's some,
Right.
but it's not a heavily traveled road. I'm sure if that got to be at some level a problem, it would be revisited by IDOT and the city if it had to have a change done on that interchange.
Well,
They put a traffic light there or something. But I know, I go in and out of there every day, have been since
Oh, yeah, but you're on the
1995.
other end.
Pardon
You're
me?
across from the apartments. Live in the back part.
I
That's all
understand,
these
ma'am.
people.
I'm not trying to be argumentative,
No,
I'm just
I'm
saying
not
that I
either.
pull up there every morning, just like we all do, to go to work. And if I've got 2 cars ahead of me, that's a lot. So there's, even though we're all going in and out there, and it's amazing to me, because remember, I was in phase 1. And when all you folks started being built in the back, I'm wondering, how am I ever gonna get in and out of here? It really hasn't turned into being that much of an issue to me. You guys all drive in and out of it. Do you ever have more than 3 or 4 cars in front of you going in and out of there? I don't.
Robert
Most
can get
days.
to be a bottleneck in the morning.
How many?
I live on Robert, and I
Yeah.
can assure you that it gets a little bottleneck.
Back in on Robert or up in?
Myself, I park on the road sometimes. So if you have a car parked on one side of the road, and you have 2 cars that want to get by,
Well, see, I think the thing here too is,
I see what you're
and I
saying.
understand the density levels in there in the way the streets wind around. But I think most of the folks that will be living on the north end of this will be going out that new entrance. They're going to be on a road that we're not. Pardon me?
If they are gonna go to Columbia Lakes to go to the marketplace, they are not gonna go out the Route 3, turn around and come all the way back.
Ben, you think they would really wind through all those streets that we just talked about?
They do it.
I live on Micah's Way, very close to Lake Shore where you go down.
You don't think
there.
they'll use
The
that
only
new road?
time I use that exit is if I'm
Well,
going to work across the
You know, we
highway.
could all have an opinion
That's
about
the
it,
only
but
time.
I believe that the traffic studies and the way these drives will be set up, the logical way in and out of there, the way they're going to learn it, because they're going to come in from that way to buy this thing, people look at it. That'll be the way they go in and out.
What's the number of people you estimate are going to live in these?
Well, if you take 210 units, and we talked about an average in a 2-bedroom apartment community, about 2.1 people, if you will, on average. And that's a number that I got handed to me by somebody.
Per unit?
Yeah, on a 2-bedroom apartment, you average a little over 2 people. Ma'am?
How many's going to be in the rental area though on the south side?
Well, think of this as there is no rental/condo area. Oh, you mean on the 88s? Okay.
On the south side?
Yeah.
How many apartment buildings or units are going in?
We're planning for 88. We're still in discussion with the city on that, but right now it's planned for 88 units.
That's a small addition.
And that's pretty small. There's over 130 something up there now. Sir?
Right now, my size volume of my house is a setback, a 35-foot setback is what you guys got from the back of my fence line to your 2-story building. Now, you're gonna put these trees up, it's gonna take 15 years before they come mature enough to retain my privacy.
You're here?
I'm putting in trees now in Anderson Creek Club that are 18 feet high, 6 and 7 feet wide, cryptomeria, and I plant them, not only do I plant them touching each other, I stagger them so they overlap. You don't see any.
Which house are you in?
I'm at 206 right here.
Right there.
35-foot setback, and these are all 35-foot setbacks. I got a 32-foot pool. This link to my pool is gonna be one of these buildings. We're gonna be right at top there. These things gonna have these proposals, are they gonna have decks on the second floor? They'll just peering over, I spend most of my time in my backyard.
It's front and back, not on the side. You're looking at the side.
Excuse me?
You're looking at the side, no, there'll be no decks on the side. The decks are the front and the back.
That's the back. That is the back.
And, okay, and actually, the decks, oh, wait a minute. What's he talking about? Oh, there's those are townhouses.
Will they have a two-story deck?
No.
Back to
There'll be a low-level deck, the upstairs will be the better.
Decks on the ground.
No decks on the second floor.
I've never built one or seen one with a deck on the second story. Yes, sir.
I've got a two-fold question. Has it been approved yet? Has this been approved?
No, this plan has received I believe a 7-0 vote in the Planning Commission in favor, a 7-0 vote in favor in the Zoning Board, and the final vote, as I understand it, has to be in the City Council.
And my second question is 2004, and I've got the drawing compared to the drawing now. There's very little difference. And in 2004, it was not approved. So
Are you're
on the
talking
south end, the
right,
south end, yeah.
right?
So what's the difference between then and now?
I'll give you my best guess. In 2004, I do not think personally that the disapproval was legal, and it wasn't in my hands. And I don't know what the thinking of the board was at that time, but the entity that owned it was not prepared to go to court, and they just walked away. That's opinion on my part. It is in fact. I don't know why it was turned down. I can tell you that the entity, and I know this from firsthand knowledge, the entity that owned it at the time was told that it would be approved by the council, and then at the last minute it was not. And so the folks who were going to build it just walked away. I don't know, I mean, I would love to be able to sort of get in the heads of all the people who were on the council at that time to see what you know, not everybody voted against it, but I don't know why that was done. Yes, sir.
I have two questions on the north side construction, the condos. You said they're going to be 2 stories with a patio on the first level.
No, maybe with a patio. But I said no patios on the second level.
What is the square footage is my first question on the condos. And the second question is, you said the value will be at least the minimum value of our houses. So what do you say is the minimum value right now?
I didn't exactly say the minimum value of the houses.
At least
What
the
I'm
minimum
saying
value.
is that the price per square foot for which they are sold, I would anticipate being at least the price per square foot of the homes in Columbia Lakes right now. And I say that simply based on what I know construction costs are and financing costs and everything. I know what it has to be.
So how big were the units going to be?
That will be market driven, but the largest units will probably be about the same size as the typical house in, I'm talking now about the townhouses in Columbia Lakes. I checked the night, was it last night? What's the date? The night before last, I had dinner with the builder who's building the homes there, and I got from him the sizes of the houses that he's building now, which are much larger than the houses he was building originally. And by the way, I don't expect any townhouse to be as small as the houses that he was building there originally. And I got some prices per square foot, In other words, I'm doing my market research. And it's based on those conversations that I'm making these projections this evening.
What part's done first, second, third,
Again, that's a function of financing. It depends what financing comes through first. My preference would be to start with the townhouses somewhere in this area and perhaps one building over here. That would be my preference. But that will not be market driven, because until you build the first buildings, you don't know what the market is. That will be finance driven entirely.
And when would the amenities go in?
Again, that's finance driven. The number of units that the bank or the financing entities, some of them are trusts, will commit to, since we can allocate a certain number of dollars per unit to the amenities, that will determine the amount of amenities that we build. Although I would anticipate that we will, by the time the very first units, and this is my pattern in the past, by the time the very first units are available for occupancy, some of the amenities will have been completed. It's not something pie in the sky, it's something that happens early on. I think there's one person out there who hasn't answered the question.
Follow up on that. 3 apartments that are planned for the north end or one of the first ones to go in? That's what you just said, the townhouses and then one little section over there, that was apartments?
I said that my preference would be to put in one of these buildings in the north end, and one of the townhouse buildings, and one of the flats. People call them, people used to refer to them as apartments. I don't know why they're all, but one flat building, one of those buildings, and then you open for sale and you see what sells. Yes. They sell as condominiums. I mean, I'm selling them. When you go on the website, look at Fairway Point and Fairway Green. Fairway Point is a condominium project that is completely sold out in my community except for 2 units. Fairway Green is one that we just opened up. You can look at particularly at Fairway Green, because that's the approach that I'm taking, except there'll be more masonry on it because that's required here in Columbia.
I'll tell you some apartment buildings, or you look at them and they probably strike you as apartment buildings, that are condos that are currently in Columbia, and that's the buildings that are right there across from McDonald's, that was built by Alan Knopf out of South County when Meadow Ridge was first built. And those are all condos, even though they look like apartment buildings. You have a little outside parking under the garages and whatnot. Those are all privately owned. And the condominiums that are over there around the swimming pool in Meadow Ridge, some of those were rentals and some of them were owned by the homeowners there as well. And I used to live on Meadow Ridge on the end of Forest View. I was the 3rd home there when Meadow Ridge first started. So this would be the 2nd community. Actually, I already lived in multifamily, but we had a big multifamily component, condos, if you will, in that development. And they're some of the most sought after. When I was selling houses, and I have to admit I haven't sold houses for about 5 years. I've been on the commercial side. But those units out there are very popular. People that are downsizing, and they like the idea of having something they didn't have to cut the grass, look nice, it's a nice community. I'm still living in Columbia. They don't have to cut 5 acres of grass. I got something I can own. I have equity in it. So we have those kinds of things in town already. This is just another step. Yes, sir?
I got a question on the north side from Skyline Drive. Okay, there's 2 houses on the left side of Skyline Drive. From their property line to the road, how much room is in there? Because there's not enough room to put a condo in there.
Well, I think you're talking about
the 2 properties.
Trying to make sure you're looking over where you're talking about.
There you go, right here.
Right here?
No, right here.
Right here.
Space from or actually, that's from
You're
there
on top of the hill.
to there. From there to there. There's not enough room from the back of that property to there to put in.
Well, I know it's hard to look at it the way it's shaped today, but we've had engineering studies done, and dirt can be moved, okay? And one of the gentlemen that's on this Columbia Planning Committee lives up on top here on Skyline,
Uh-huh.
You don't live there.
Well, he lives one of these two houses.
No, you don't.
No, he doesn't.
No, he doesn't. We live in that one, and we know the guy that lives in the other one.
Who was it, Wes, that one of your planning guys lives up on Skyline?
They can't.
Oh, I'm sorry. One of the planning commissioner guys lived on Skyline that was in our original meeting. Does he still live up there?
Yeah, but he's not really on Skyline, it's just below.
Okay.
He's actually, I think I know who you're
Oh,
talking about.
he's on the flat bottom. You're
Yeah,
talking
he lives
about
down here.
Russ,
He's not.
Horsley.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's down the bottom. He's
on
down the...
Skyline.
Why don't you up here?
No, because that's my house.
He's down on the bottom.
Well, I know his comment was, and I'll just tell you what he said. I think I lost it in my mind. When he saw the plan, he was always afraid of what might be built out here because he's always known it was R7 zoning. And he was very happy to see something quality, something designed, something that is, you'll know what's going to be built.
And what with the steepness
And it's
of that,
Well, you can't build on that hillside. I mean,
there's not enough room
No.
once you get up that hill.
no, the hillside you're talking about is here.
No,
No.
that's not what
You're
we're
talking about over here.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah, right there.
There's not enough room there.
I'm telling you.
Ma'am, I'm telling you that an engineer says right now that we can do it, and that's not saying that you can go out there right now and start throwing bricks down, but you're going to have to move some dirt.
And look, there are probably a dozen or 20 or more detailed issues with any development. And when this is engineered, it's not fully engineered yet. When it's engineered, the engineering plans have to get submitted to the City of Columbia. The City of Columbia has to approve the engineering plans, evaluate them. And if there's a spot where something doesn't work or has to be moved, then it'll be moved. That's all. This is a plan done by a local engineer. Everything has been scaled, and this is what the engineers have represented to me can be built there. Now, if they're wrong, then they're wrong, and we'll have to make an adjustment. I would, I have to wrap this up at some point. I'm 75 years old, I'm getting tired. But I really want to invite you to look at www.andersoncreekclub.com. Look at it carefully. And I want to issue an invitation to anyone who lives in Columbia Lakes. Come down to North Carolina. Be my guest. I'll pay for a round of golf for any and every one of you on a Davis Love III 4.5-star golf course, one of the finest in the country. Take a look and see what I've done, and I think that will alleviate your fears. Or maybe you could get together and send a delegation to come down and take a look. And I think you will be satisfied that what's going to be built is quality and something that we can all be proud of.
Anything else? Yes, sir.
We haven't talked much about the hotel.
Yeah.
So do you have a hotel?
No.
So that's just
I am a residential developer, period. I got this motel site because when I made the deal with the bank, I said, I don't want the motel. This is what I'll pay you for the multifamily. They said, okay, and take the motel site, get it off our books, we don't want it. So what I did, that's the way banks are. So what I did was I brought a really experienced motel developer in who checked the site out, came up with a conceptual idea. It was turned over to Hennigan Associates, and they were asked, will that idea work? In other words, will the engineering work, will the grades work, and what have you? They have done the study, and yes, it will work. I'm not a motel developer. I can only tell you what I've been told. And that is that what drives the development of a motel is the franchise by the hotel chain. So if Holiday Inn came in and said, okay, we'll franchise a hotel there. Then a hotel developer will come in, can get financing, will build it, and it's a Holiday Inn. So it's not really the developer who makes the ultimate decision. It's the chain. So, you know, there's a Hampton Inn here in Columbia. I think it's in a really tough location. This location, you can see it coming across the bridge. There's not another motel that I'm aware of in 20 miles in either direction. I think, from what I've been told, it's a great motel site. But there aren't a lot of motels being built today in this market. So it'll have to wait until some developer can convince a chain to do a franchise there. I just told you everything I know about hotels. I don't know another thing.
And you have had a developer walk the site.
Yes, I've had a developer walk the site. But he hasn't told me he's going to do anything because he's a developer. Unless a chain tells him, yes, we'll give you a franchise there, he couldn't even get the financing to build a motel.
And that gets back into my job. I have to market the site. So we have to work together with the landowners to make sure that the hotel community knows that we have a spot there that one would fit on. And I think it's been a real challenge in Columbia. I know there was a lot of searching going on for another motel site in town, and it just ground's not available. The old Ford dealership, there's a natural gas pipeline that goes through there that precluded that from being developed. I want amenities for Columbia. I'm like you, I live here. I'm like you, I fled Cahokia. You know, I have all of the empathy for you guys, believe me. And I wouldn't be representing this project if I thought it wasn't something good for the community. I'm not a developer. I'm not going to make $1 million off of this. I'm not David's partner. It's a land transaction, real estate deal for me, and that's what I do. But believe me, I know the pain. My old house in Cahokia, where I grew up, is boarded up right now. It's painful. The second house I bought in Cahokia, not in good shape either. Columbia's not Cahokia. And I think city fathers have pretty well determined that it's not going to be, because you can't build stuff here that's going to turn into that, especially not in a generation or two. It's just not going to happen. There's too much money involved for that to happen. If you had, and I know exactly the apartments you're talking about, Cottonwood and the stuff there on Range Lane, probably were built for a couple $100,000 a piece. And then you can rent them for $450 a month, make a pile of money, and if they never put another dime in them, after about 10 years, they got all their money back, made a big fortune, and they're on to the next thing. Totally understand that. And I hope you guys understand that I'm sincere when I say that I really do think, having looked at this at a detail level and been privileged to work with Mr. Levinson on a level to really understand what his mind is on this. He's never said no to us. We've come back and we said we need screening, we need assurances that we're going to do the amenities as soon as we can. We need to have top flight materials. We don't want to fight the city on the brick ordinance. It's never been a problem. So it is zoned multifamily. It'll probably stay zoned that way. So you have an opportunity here for a planned unit development where every aspect of it's planned and you'll all know what's going to be built there. And if not this, then the next thing down the road might be Cottonwood. I don't know. I don't want to scare anybody with that, but that's a possibility. Yes, sir?
Is there any plans to expand over that bridge?
Don't think so. Don't know of anything. I think the only way that would happen, I don't know how much you've been following this, but the Dupo interchange, the question was, is there any plans to expand over Route 3? The Highway Department, as you may recall, a couple of years ago, there was a big war going on between Columbia and Dupo where the interchanges were going to be built. As far as I know, the plan is still there for M Station Road and Route 3 to have a diamond interchange crossing 255 and actually entering onto the highway there. At that point, if they do that, and the traffic load becomes tough on Route 3, they may have to re-engineer the highway. But that's all I know. I mean, that's how far out in the future is that, so. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
How many residential parking spots are, I can't read the numbers on.
Yeah, you know, I wish Jim Vogt was here. Do you know what the ratio is, David, on parking for the apartments?
We got to answer.
Minimum of 2 to 1.
Okay, and during construction phase, how do you guys plan on managing construction traffic?
Managing construction traffic? There's all kinds of rules on how that has to be done, even from an environmental stuff on how the mud runs off and whatnot. But David, you have any comments on that?
No, but actually, the Corps of Engineers requires, and the state too, requires the installation of fences. They call them fences, they're really plastic, to stop any mud running off onto the streets. But mud runs off in the streets occasionally, and then you have to clean it up and fix it up, depending on the weather and what have you. But there are all sorts of rules in place. I know at Anderson Creek Club, we're being inspected all the time. Every one of our buildings is being inspected. Every single building we build has to have the, they're called erosion control fences put up. And it's standard procedure.
One other thought on construction. One of my hats I wear day to day is I'm also the president of the Board of Realtors this year for this region. And it was an interesting statistic that's being cited by the Illinois Association of Realtors, and you can thank guys like Ken Jones that are building these houses and guys like you that are buying them. Every real estate transaction, home buy, if you will, generates about $25,000 in economy around the sale. People are buying furniture, people are buying lawnmowers, whatever you're buying along with your home sale. So if these units start becoming more sales, less rental, or even if they start out with rental, the economy of this, it's probably, we don't know the number, but think $25 to $30 million project to build it. How many carpenters, how many bricklayers, how many guys selling concrete around here that haven't been able to work a lot in the last few years will go back to work? And how will that affect the community as well? Yes, sir.
Well, that's kind of ties into my question. You're saying, the local, but he keeps referring to as my builders. Are you going to?
Well, he's talking about his builders in the situation he's in today. You're not going to bring framing crews in from North Carolina.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
No, when I said my builders, and they use subcontractors, they're all local. I mean, no one commutes more than that I can think of. 40 miles would be a lot.
Well, you'd be surprised. It's the construction industry, and it's dry around here. So that's my main concern. Is I'm in the construction industry along with other people in the neighborhood. This is a chance for electricians and bricklayers and carpenters to go to work. So I have to look at it that being positive for this.
Right, I've played a number of different roles in my life. Joe mentioned a few of them. I also had my own economic development program when I was insurance commissioner, and created 5,000 jobs in a relatively short period of time, and was working with 35 companies when I left office. My second role in life, in my mind, is as a real estate developer and builder. My first role is in public policy. We didn't talk too much about that tonight because you folks don't care too much about that. But I view a real estate development as a wing of public policy in terms of the jobs it creates, in terms of the environment that it creates. If all developers and all builders did a good job, we'd have a better country. So I think in terms of public policy, I certainly am not involved in this project to make money. My wife is very upset with me. Why are you going to St. Louis? You work 6.5 days a week now. I have to explain to her it's a matter of pride. I started this project in 1976. I'm going to try to get it finished. The likelihood of my making any money off of this project is not great. And I can assure you, any money I make off of this project, I will give to 501c charities.
One other thought there too. When we came into this and the bank asked me to work with David, and I got a hold of the city fathers because I want to start a project in the beginning, not at the end or the middle. So we met with the mayor, we met with Paul Ellis, this economic development coordinator, and we said, how do we start? We want to know how to start so that we don't get sideways like we did as we mentioned a few years ago. So we've taken every step with the city's input, the city attorney, the city engineer. We've done it by oil, folks. I can't tell you that we've made every effort to do everything. And the city code here is not easy. It's not simple. It's there for everybody's protection. So this will not be built in some sort of slipshod way. And if, as David said, if it doesn't fit or it's not right, once we get to the final drawings, it'll be changed. But it won't be changed in any sort of adverse way. Sir?
Hey, David, you mentioned you wanted the business to make money. I understand it's a matter of pride. If that's the case, why not work with the bank and the city to rezone R1 and do single family dwelling? That seems like that would be a lot more agreeable.
I didn't say I wasn't in the business to make money. I said any money I make, I give away. That's important to me. To give money to Washington University, to give money to Harvard, to give money to Chapel Hill, to give money to St. Andrew's School, where I've endowed things. That's what I work for. Yes, this is a capitalist economy, and I work to make money. But at this point, a very large portion of it I give away. Of course, if they change the tax code and don't allow any deductions, you won't be able to give us away as much.
But you could still make money off of single family dwelling.
But
the order of magnitude?
The bank would never agree to that. I mean, they lent the money originally, they got it back, but they lent the money originally based on the way it's been zoned for years. And, you know, anybody can put up vinyl boxes. It's not my vision. My vision is something better than that. CUP.
And I'll answer that a little bit more directly. I've had the property on the market for almost 3 years for sale to the entire open world. Anybody, you, could have come in and said, you know what, that's a great place to build houses. Let me go to the city and fight zoning for 6 months, see if I can get it all replatted to R1, which is not the level of, you'd probably get R5 if you got anything. But whatever you get, and who knows how many house sites would be out there, if it's profitable. So yeah, it's a free country. It's a capitalistic society. We're in right now. We didn't want to fight anybody. Rezoning, by its definition, can be, there's a problem. And David has he didn't talk about this very much, but his deal with the bank is it's an open opportunity, but he has to make a decision by a certain time. And it precluded doing any major rezoning. One thing we did rezone is to, once again, to help you understand how sincere he is about densities. That piece at the top where all the amenities are shown to be, that's actually zoned today C3. C3 means it's commercial. C3 means I could put a convenience store up there in the middle of this if I wanted to, because that's what it's zoned. What we're doing is we're asking the city to take it to A1. Can't build houses there, can't build multifamily units there, but I can include it in my community unit plan so I can put the amenities on it without anybody having any fear they're going to sneak some more apartment buildings in there. That's the kind of thinking that's in the plan. Sir?
Who's going to manage the local project?
Who's going to manage it? Good question. I think David's interviewing people today, different builders, some of the biggest builders in the area I know he's met with. I think you're going to have some local contractors as well. Probably be any number of folks. It'll be ultimately managed by him, but there'll be a lot of local folks, I'm sure, that day to day will have a lot of hands-on with it.
Mr. Levinson, just an individual or a corporation?
Is Mr. Levinson an individual or corporation?
A corporation of which I'm the only stockholder. I mean, typically, you set up a separate LLC as the general partner in each of these projects. And I would be the sole shareholder. The reason you set it up as a corporation, there's a lot of legal reasons having to do with liability and that sort of thing, but that's the way everyone is done. So I anticipate that it will be done under my management, although obviously I will have staff here working for me on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. Timeline begin. We touched on it earlier.
Microphone.
I asked if there was a timeline to begin. I answered that earlier. I said the initial piece is entirely driven by financing. the availability of financing. Yes, I am working on that. I'm working with several different, I think I said that I'm working with several different sources already, but until it's passed by the council, there's, you know, people don't want to spend a lot of time worrying about it because they're working on it because it's not a done deal yet. It's got to be approved by the council.
The newspaper had reported that a restaurant would be involved. Is that still?
The newspaper was wrong. It was wrong. There's no reason to say anything else about it.
Okay. And my second question is, when does this go to the city council for a vote?
I think it's supposed to go this coming Monday night to the committee of the council and the following Monday night to the council.
We're in the process of redesigning the southern part of this, where those 88 units are. The drawing you have today, the city hasn't seen that yet. And that's a downscaled, that's got more green space on it than the old drawing had. And we've twisted the building around to get it off a building line. We're working with the city engineer to get his approval on that. We'll then try to get in front of the planning committee. We've got to get this on their agenda. We have so many days to do that. And Jim Vogt, who's the engineer on this project, has been ramrodding that part of it, ramrodding it. He's not here tonight, but certainly their next meeting is next Monday, I believe, in planning on the aldermanic committee. Gene, help me, what's your actual title on that?
Committee of the whole.
Committee of the whole. So we go to the committee of the whole, they look at it, hopefully they like it, and then we go to the next city council meeting for a final vote. That's the quickest it could happen. Anybody else? Sure.
Are any of the contractors you're meeting with, are they union?
I don't know. I didn't ask them that.
Some of you are looking friendlier now, some of you I don't know. I hope this has been helpful. Yes, ma'am?
Can I just ask one question?
Sure.
Originally, I believe you said that would be 2 and 3 bedroom units. Am I correct?
Right.
And you're saying there won't be many children. If you put in a 3-bedroom unit, you're bound to have children. Right. And can the Columbia School District handle more children?
I'm building 3-bedroom condominiums
No 3-bedroom?
right now in Anderson Creek Club. Folks use one for a guest room and one for a study. And there's I have single people buying, not even couples, buying 3-bedroom units. It does not necessarily mean that you get children. We have very, very few children in multifamily housing.
Well, I can understand that. However, we have to take into account the possibility that you may have children.
Well, when we say 2.1 people, unfortunately, we have single parents who have a child. So it doesn't mean we have 1/10 of a child per unit, because we don't necessarily have 2 adults per unit. But it averages 2.1 people per
Okay,
unit.
I guess this question really isn't for you then, it's more for the alderman to find out whether Columbia can handle additional children and the police department handle additional people and the fire department handle additional people. Are we going to end up hiring more people and paying them better?
Now, I don't want to put words in their mouth, but that's certainly one of the issues that was considered in the Planning Commission. You have some very effective and very seasoned folks that sit on your committees, and that's the reason we can pull this 2.1 out of our ear, because that's a number that was used there. But honestly, I think that when you go up to Columbia Lakes, it's there today, those apartments. You know, it's just not running over with kids all over the place. There are a few. But the school district, and I'm not sure, Wes, whether you guys actually talked to the district or not about this, but any concerns or reasons to be concerned, if you can help?
I look at the fact that as it's zoned right now versus the proposal, we're talking about a difference of almost 300 additional units if you go with.
That's hard for people.
And that's not to say that any developer could walk in tomorrow and buy that piece of property.
Right.
And do exactly what it's zoned for right now.
R7 zoning would allow over 500 units up there.
I mean, to me, it's no different than any, I mean, we've got several subdivisions that have been platted for years. As the market returns, you're going to start seeing some growth. So is it a concern for the city and the school district? Yes, it's always a concern. But unfortunately, because of our proximity to the St. Louis metropolitan area, we're going to continue to grow.
Yeah.
And Mr. Levinson has mentioned it several times, you've mentioned it several times, the zoning and the subdivision codes in Columbia are extremely strict because we are trying to control that growth as much as we can.
Right.
We're going to grow. And so then you manage that. You know, as far as taxes going up, by law, the city can only increase its revenue from taxes 4.99% a year. That's not your tax bill, that's our revenue from taxes. If you look at during the 80s and 90s, your tax rate to the city actually went down because we had such phenomenal housing growth that what we were doing is we were taking that 5% growth and spreading it out over what was, on average, 85 new home starts a year, not to mention commercial development. So while development and growth is a bad thing, it also keeps your real estate taxes in check. Now, the other piece of this equation is 67% of your real estate tax bill is not the city, it's the school district.
The one thing I would like to mention, I don't know if I said this before, but I think the population of Columbia is what, about 10,000 now? Anderson Creek Club, my own project, the population will be about 10,000. So, in many ways, I'm facing the same thing as the city of Columbia is in terms of growth, in terms of taxes. I have my own internal taxes, the Property Owners Association. I provide everyone with high-speed internet, with television, with 23 parks and 19 ponds, and every amenity you can imagine, and a lifelong learning center, and a Wonder Years child care, the preschool. I have to do all of those things. The only difference is, in the immortal words of Mel Brooks in History of the World, Part 1, it is good to be king. In my project, I'm the head of the developer, I'm head of the Architectural Control Committee, I'm head of the real estate company, I'm head of the Property Owners Association. I can make all the decisions. And if you look at what I've done, I don't think you'll find any place in America any better. We were just voted by Where to Retire magazine one of the 50 best places to retire in the United States. And most of those are age restricted, and we aren't. I really ask you to go to that website and take a look. www.andersoncreekclub.com. Come down, visit me, let me know you're coming. Joe will let me know you're coming. Play around the golf on me. And thank you all so much for coming this evening.
One other point, if you'd like to talk to me directly, if something comes up and you just didn't think of it tonight, first of all, our number's on that sign up in front of the subdivision. The quicker we get this started, we'll take the ugly sign down too. But don't hesitate to call me at the office, 618-277-4400, or my cell phone, 618-660-8759. And your homeowners association people have those numbers as well. So if we can help you at all, and we really do appreciate everybody coming out in this hot weather. Appreciate you all showing up.